Hey, man.
Hey, Markus.
Hey, George. How are you doing?
Hello. Good.
George. Good.
I'm fine. Good to talk to you.
Likewise.
Finally.
Yes. I've been waiting for this for a long time.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sounds good. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Just the usual busy Monday.
Yeah.
But
No better time to come on a podcast and
yeah.
talk.
But since it's about geeking, about music, it's kind of
You'll make an exception.
at least for me, it's a pleasure. So
yeah, certainly likewise. Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, thanks for being on the podcast, and I know you're a busy man, so I appreciate the time.
My pleasure.
Cool. So before we get into any questions, I want to start with a warm-up question because when you were in the basement of the Sophia Studios, hitting the air ducts with a sledgehammer, how many of those did you end up having to replace?
Of the hammers or
no, the air ducts. Did any one of those hits get a bit too intensive?
Yeah, well, truthfully, that was first of all that was for our latest library, Primal Ethnic Orchestra. In case somebody's wondering what the hell we're talking
context
about.
is good.
Yeah, context.
Yeah.
So the idea was that's it's a part of the old ventilation system which was not used anymore, and that's kind of it's a really nice place that's super kind of like below ground, and it's not suitable for work. Otherwise we would have done some sort of a studio there, quite probably.
Depends on the work, it seems.
That's right. Yeah. So we had to however turn this space, this small little space into like a storage room, but the ventilation system was a bit problematic for this, so we had to destroy it either way. So I was like, well, we only have one chance of doing this, right?
So was that the inspiration for Primal? That's the reason you got into it?
No, not really. We actually started recordings of Primal before that. Started doing some stuff in Greece, and this was kind of like a nice add-on. And it's a bit strange to say this, but actually one of the reasons we did this was because Tsvetan, our support person, who's like super nice, and he's a guy that helps a lot into all sorts of like social how do you say this in English, like being voluntary at different events. And this might sound a bit weird to you and to probably a lot of people, but we have this thing in Bulgaria where we end up collecting the like the bottles for plastic recycling.
Yeah.
But just the what's the word?
The bottle caps.
Yeah, thank you. The bottle caps, because they're made into from a different, more harder type of plastic, and there's like this local group of people that did this, and from the money that they collected from this charity, they bought a lot of like ambulances for especially for babies and for giving birth on the road. And Tsetso is like a volunteer in our neighborhood, so he collects a lot of those, and that's, I would say, like we end up every quarter or half a year we end up with kind of like tons of plastic, and we had to somehow store them, because there's a place where people from the neighborhood leave out their plastic caps. Then he collects them, and we have to put them somewhere. So out of that kind of charity event, we ended up doing something really raw and destroying a lot of stuff, so that we have enough storage space for this. So, yeah.
Nice. Cool. What's one thing about Bulgaria that everyone in the world should know, but they probably don't?
Yogurt, I guess.
I know that. We actually we have pretty well. I don't know if it's decent, but it tastes good to me. But they actually do make it here as well. Luckily,
there's a lot of also Japanese people, even from like Soviet times in Bulgaria. Where there was like this export thing of Bulgaria exporting yogurt for some reason. Ethnic singing. We have on the Voyager, on the goat vinyl that was sent in space, we have one song that's
nice.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the other songs were, but I guess they were like kind of like hits, like the Beatles or something, and then we have a Bulgarian song. See what else. The Cyrillic alphabet. So the Cyrillic alphabet was created here in Bulgaria.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So you're based in Sofia, Bulgaria
That's
right
correct.
now?
That's correct.
Is that where you were born as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Born and raised. Never left.
Born and raised. Never left. Only for pleasure and for travels.
Sure.
But not for a longer period of time.
Cool. And talking about your family, what did your parents do for a living?
If I'm to anticipate that whether the question is related to music somehow, the only person in my family that
it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
No,
okay.
no.
Yeah. So, but the only person that has some sort of a connection to music is my uncle, who's a painter. Basically, he's a great painter, but he was also very popular during the 90s in new wave. Like he had a new wave band.
Nice.
That's very underground. But apart from that, my mother, she's an art historian, and my father, he was a chemist, but also he was a spelunker.
Nice.
So
that's
exploring caves.
Yeah, that's hardcore stuff. I've seen some of the videos where they go spelunking, and I don't have a phobia about tight spaces, but it seems like you're just like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, especially because right next to Sofia, there's this mountain called Vitusha Mountain, and it wasn't like millions of years ago. It was a volcano, basically, but right now it's not. It's not an active volcano, but there was there's like basically these like 16 kilometers or even more of tunnels below the mountain, and from a certain point when you reach like the 7th or the 8th kilometer, for example, and then you have to go through a river to continue your journey,
like an underground.
And yes, exactly, underground. And now my father was one of the persons that explored this, and they didn't know. They didn't have any sort of equipment to see whether this river was going. Obviously, it's going somewhere, but whether you would dive into the river and then get somewhere else. So pretty scary stuff, I would say. Yeah.
So spelunking chemist. He sounds like a character from a series or something.
Yeah. Well, they used. I remember when I was a child, when there was like huge rains on my street, he would take this type of like some sort of a paint chemical that you would put. It's harmless basically, but you would put it into the water, and then you would see where the water would end up. So they would kind of cover, for example, the river in yellow or in green, and then they will start exploring where they will see yellow water coming out. So they will, here's how from this point we covered the water in yellow or something, and then on like 2 kilometers that way we can see that the water is already yellow, so there's something in between. So that was what they used to kind of measure options. So weird stuff.
So did they ever discover where the river was running from the point that your father found?
Because in order to continue, and there's a lot of extra kilometers of tunnels and holes, huge and beautiful holes. Unfortunately, it's not accessible via the public because it's a scary cave. So basically, you need to be a professional in order to get inside. But yeah, so after my father passed away, I think that they did a lot of extra testing, and right now it's up to 20 something kilometers. So they even expanded more on the maps. But now using contemporary techniques and I don't know.
Scanning from space.
Scanning from space. Yeah. Starlink.
Yeah.
Elon Musk did most of the digging.
Yeah, I heard about the new pyramids of Giza scanning from space stuff. The ones that they say there are giant coils underneath the pyramids.
Nice.
I don't know about the viability of the technology. I don't know anything about it, but at the very least, it's super exciting. If it's true, I mean, it would be amazing.
That's right. Yeah.
By
the way, we're talking, and did I have to click on anything?
No, you're good to go. It's me.
Everything's go.
Yeah, it's me just pressing record. We are recording. I don't know if you can see. I guess from the right you can.
Yeah, it says
see.
rec.
Yeah,
but
no worries. It's good to check. So, how did you, if you, in hindsight, if you had to sort of analyze if your parents' jobs, I mean, you said art historian as well. I mean, that must have had...
but visual arts.
Visual arts, yeah.
Visual arts and history.
Did those professions and the spelunking, the hobby, did those shape you in some sort of a way? Like if you had to look back, did it have an influence on how you looked at the world?
In terms of professions, maybe not so sure about that. I wouldn't say necessarily the profession, but the vibe at home. Because I have a sister, she's older than me, so she was had more access to music that I was not accustomed to, and at home. So, for example, my father, he hated classical music, so he was a big fan of blues and country, and so we listened to a lot of Elvis Presley and Eric Clapton and Louis Armstrong. What else? Miles Davis as well. Even though Miles Davis was a bit too much. My mother, however, she would listen to a lot of classical music. And my sister would constantly. She was when I was young. She was kind of in that stage of her life where she would listen to like Nirvana and Metallica and
all the forbidden stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't say forbidden. It was not forbidden at home, but it was new and interesting. And
what was your age difference between you?
It's 8 years.
Okay, so quite a lot.
Yeah, and then when I was because I played the piano since I was 6. Not a fan of it, unfortunately. Too lazy to become a professional musician.
That's how you end up a composer.
Yeah, that's right. And I would go to my grandma's place, which was kind of on the next street, and I would play the piano there because we didn't have a piano at home. And there I would meet my uncle who lived there, and that was like his studio / the place where he painted, and he would be listening to a lot of Jean-Michel Jarre and Bowie and a completely different style of music, which I didn't necessarily understand at the time, and and Kraftwerk, and yeah. But I think that the turning point was when my sister received like a gift, two gifts actually, from different places. So the first one was, it was a CD of Batman and Robin, which of the soundtrack, which she was totally not interested in. So she just gave it to me. And the second thing was, now you have to understand that this was in the 90s. So Bulgaria was not longer like a Soviet state, but satellite Soviet state, so to say. But still, we didn't have that connection to the outside world. So obviously, we knew film music, what film music was about, but everything was only like Star Wars, and the rest was spaghetti westerns. So there was no Jerry Goldsmith. There was no mention of James Horner, for example, and even John Williams. John Williams was only known because of Star Wars, because that was so big that even that got through the balloon of the Soviet Union. And at that time, there were no CDs, no vinyls. Vinyls were kind of dead and very expensive. CDs were coming into shape, but there wasn't much to choose from. Cassette players were still a thing, but again, it was mostly stuff that was created in our own country, which was average. And then suddenly my sister comes back home with the Batman and Robin CD, and then a cassette, like it was a ripped cassette. So it was a ripped copy of Braveheart. And I played, and it even stopped at kind of the middle of one cue. And that was kind of my first connection to music that was very interesting to me, because it was not like something that I've heard before, because I've heard classical music a lot. I've heard contemporary music and grunge and electronic, and then I would get like Batman and Robin, Golden Thoughts, which sounds like Prokofiev. Essentially, it's kind of like Prokofiev, but it's not like Prokofiev. It's more accessible. And then Braveheart, in my opinion, it's a beautiful score. So I wouldn't say it was that was a very long answer to a very simple question from your side. Sorry about it.
No worries. But this is what this podcast is for. It's a
but
long
I
tangent.
think it was not the professions or the upbringing, but the social circle of people that are interested into learning new things and have different tastes of art.
Yeah. You said your uncle had a studio. Do you mean like a visual art studio, or did he actually have any recording?
Both.
Okay.
Recording is a strong word, but like a cassette deck plus like a synth and a guitar. Yeah.
Did he have like a Soviet era synth, or?
No, it was a Roland, because
Nice.
it was a Roland. He still uses that to this day.
Wow.
Now he lives in Italy, and he's living the dream. But he's an artist in the truest sense of what art is about. There was like this Catholic cathedral in Sofia, and he was commissioned to write this Virgin Mary with Jesus, and it's a very big painting. It's like I think about 2 meters high. And he did it in this very Renaissance and Baroque way. However, the background is as if you're looking at like surrealism, kind of like Salvador Dali. And this visual contrast between the very fine forms, the perfect forms of the Renaissance and the Baroque era, and then you get this abstract background. It was super nice, and they loved it. They liked it, and they said, "Okay, we'll love the painting." He was like, "I'm not giving it to you. It's commission work." And he was like, "No, I'm keeping this for myself." So,
is there any chance to see that somewhere?
In Italy.
In Italy, okay.
In Italy, yeah.
So you just have to go to Italy and ask around until you
find a painting.
You said that he's an artist in the truest sense. What do you mean by that, if you had to describe it?
That he's not putting art into through the financial prism. So because film music in ways, commercial film music or game music, it's connected to some sort of a product. This doesn't make it bad, but you have to cater to some sort of stylistic references and and decisions that sometimes do not depend on you. So if you're working for a film, you have to follow the aesthetic of the director. Obviously, you can communicate, and maybe you can have some sort of a relationship that would give you enough freedom to create what you want, but that's rarely the case. However, he doesn't worry about money. Maybe that's one of the reasons he doesn't drive a Maserati, but
usually linked, yeah.
Yeah, usually linked. But thinking of that, I'm also not driving a Maserati, so maybe there's something
hey,
wrong.
Not yet, okay?
Not yet, yeah.
A few sample libraries later, maybe.
Yeah. But he's just doing art for the sake of art, for the sake of just saying something and doing something that inspired you in a way. So I'll give you an example. He was at a certain point, he had this idea of he became like a huge fan of Asian film culture. So films like Hero. Have you watched Hero with Jet Li?
I don't think so, no.
Ooh, I highly recommend it. That's a beautiful film and beautiful soundtrack by Tandun. It's very abstract and very philosophical. And each of them, I would just say like a short story about the film. So the film synopsis is basically the Chinese emperor rewards like a warrior who killed his assassins. And there's a group of those assassins, like 3 people, that that guy stopped them. So I don't want to spoil the film, but basically each segment of the film, kind of like a Tarantino movie. So each segment of the film is he speaks about himself trying to fight assassin A and then assassin B. So every one of these parts of the story are different, with different color sets and at a different space. And the battles, the first one is kind of a battle of the minds. So it's you have this slow motion rain dropping, and everything is kind of like black and white. And then the second assassin he fights in on a lake. So they kind of fly on top of the lake, and so it's a very beautiful film. And my uncle was so inspired by this aesthetic because it's a different aesthetic. Sorry, my camera is blurry for some
Yeah,
reason. Yeah.
sometimes autofocus is
Yeah.
like that.
So he kind of became obsessed with it. And started, painting like Chinese, like bamboo forest with some sort of a lady. And I was like, oh, is this for some sort of a project or exhibition? And he was like, no, I just felt like expressing what I just saw. I wanted to take this throughout my own personal perception and create some sort of an art with it. So that's what I meant, that he was interested mostly in and then also with his music as well. So he's constantly working and doing something, but in the sense of our contemporary lifestyle, he hasn't worked a single day of his life, which is
true believer. Is that when you saw him work like that and talk like that, was it like, did it make automatically sense to you, or was it inspiring in the sense that, oh, okay, this is pretty cool stuff, and you wanted to do something similar?
Not really. It took me a lot of years, because for me, my uncle, my connection with my uncle was mostly him being annoyed at me playing the piano. And at a certain point, because I also didn't want to play the piano to practice, so he asked me, could you like pose for me while I'm painting? And I was like, yeah, sure. What do I need to do? Anything but playing the music. And he was like, well, you just need to sit like this. I'm drawing an angel, so I did the angel sign like this, and I sit there for like 6 or 7 hours. And for me, I was like, no, that's a bit too much. But recently, the more I think about his mindset as an artist, the more I wish to implore certain ways of that into my own everyday life. Just to create some sort of art and music just for myself,
How do you make, like, how have you approached that? How have you implemented that? Like, do you have any sort of like practical changes you've done, or
I did a couple
mindset?
of albums for myself, but I'm also moving this space right here, my creative space. I'm moving that into a different facility so that it's more secluded, in a way. Because I want to, when I did the soundtrack for a video game called Surviving Mars, that was in 2018. Basically, they didn't release the soundtrack till 2019, I guess. And the game was not in early access or something like this. It was a full release game, and it was a special soundtrack, special moment of my life. My daughter was born, and for me, it was kind of super, I wouldn't say bad or sad, but it was not pleasant that 3 years of my life were not presented in any way from something that I was kind of proud of. And then I started thinking and going back, and then I saw that I had a lot of projects that I worked on, and none of these were actually mine, so to speak, like the master recording. So I couldn't do anything with that music apart from re-recording it and reproducing it myself. And I was like, why? Why don't I do something that's just for me? So I from that time I started doing some singles, and I have 3 albums that are kind of weird and crazy and just doing something different and interesting. So the one is called The Birth of a Flower, and it's synths and bass clarinets and strings and drums recorded in the same space all together, which was painful to mix. Lots of problems, but that's kind of in a way that's also kind of the joy of doing that. So it's a mountain peak that you need to climb. And then I did something different completely, a string quartet and piano, no synths, no effects whatsoever, everything acoustic. And I think that's very important in ways for your own self as a composer or as a creative, just to have the place to experiment and no one to judge you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty surprised by, of course, like some publishers, some companies want to, publish the music under their own name or in a sort of a different way. I'm kind of surprised by how composers are not able to, release the music under their own name, despite, I don't know what happened there. I mean, I think the music is now under your name if you go to Apple Music and
that's
stuff.
right. Well, they released it under my name, even though there was a typo, which they fixed. But but I guess before that it was so that they could keep the music exclusively on Steam. Because
Right.
when people buy it exclusively, for them it's more money and bigger revenue than just streams, which is it's not as much as, I don't know, 10,000 people buying a download package, like a deluxe package of the game, even.
Yeah.
Because there are people that buy the game as a deluxe package.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's an example of where, I mean, I guess like the downside of that seems so minuscule compared to how important it is for a composer. Of course, I do understand it from a business sense making position, but still, it seems a bit strange. It doesn't seem like that big of a difference would actually happen, but
in a way, I'm kind of used to it because here in Bulgaria, there's all the films that I've done, that I've worked on, they don't have a soundtrack release. Only unless I do it myself, obviously. But the reason for that is that nobody cares. It's and I think that's not only in Bulgaria. I feel that films generally, people stopped listening to soundtracks as much as they did in the past. So, for example, I don't know, 20 years ago, Howard Shore would create something like a new piece of music for some film, and people would be generally excited. And nowadays you would get, I don't know, Lorne Balfe doing like a film, and everybody would say, yeah, it's a nice soundtrack. And there's no excitement, and people just don't. However, it's not the same for the games. I feel that people were more invested into video game music than they are to film music for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah. I was going to ask, what do you think that is? But yeah, it's an interesting thing. Like speaks, I guess it may be that it's easier to find your target audience for a video game versus if you are creating a movie and putting it out there, it's might be harder to reach the people who really care about this thing and who are really in the pocket of what your movie is trying to do. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, that's right. And I also think that going to the movies is not a thing that has that much of an impact nowadays. And there's a difference at perceiving the music to a film when you're in a theater with speakers blasting all sorts of sounds into your ears, and then listening to that at home, probably quieter because of neighbors and something. And yeah, so just the music is perceived differently. And also nowadays films, they have this type of wallpaper-ish background music, and I think that it's always kind of behind sound effects. I'll give you an example. I was working on, again, in 2018. I was very, very fortunate to be a small part of Star Wars solo, a Star Wars story, with the music by John Powell. And John I've always been a huge fan of his work, and that's, I would say, a true masterpiece of a soundtrack. A really amazing one, especially if you if you watch some of the stuff that he does on screen, like the Imperial March in major, like propaganda-ish. So there are quite a lot of things that are very clever and very thoughtful inside of that. But then when you listen to that into the theater, and you get so much sound effects, and just that the music is kind of behind everything else. So maybe that's also one of the reasons why people do not pay attention to it. Obviously we do, because we're professionals, and we learned our brain and our ears to make a difference between different sounds and different layers of audio. But most of the people, they just cannot do this. They cannot perceive. So that when they hear 25 explosions and blasting, I don't know, motorcycles and whatever, then the music is kind of something that adds up to this air, and you don't remember that as much as you do in the past. That's just my assumption for it. I don't say that's the reason for it.
Yeah. No, I always think and hope that people who are really struck by the music, they will always seek it out. I think that will always be true to a degree. I wonder if I often think about people going to the movies, and they're clearly moved by the story. Or this could be a series also, it doesn't matter, but they are really captured by it, and they don't necessarily understand how much of that comes from the music. And then if they're not sort of like habitual music enjoyers or listeners, they don't necessarily even understand that A, it's the music that's causing a lot of it, and B, that they could go back to that soundtrack and experience a lot of the same emotion through that music. So I think it's also in part like a education issue and realization issue, that people realize, oh, wait a minute, that music was very impactful on me, and I could go and listen to it and enjoy it if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Cool. Briefly going back to your background, if you had to describe what kind of a kid you were, how would you put it? Because I get like a sort of an introspective vibe from you, but you also have this, certain type of outward energy. So what were you like as a kid?
I was a naughty kid, I guess. I like to have fun. I skipped school, and a lot of it, to play video games, and to play at that time, I think it was like Warcraft 3, and from a certain point World of Warcraft came out.
Always solid life choices to invest more in there.
Yeah, that's right. And which is kind of, in a way, I failed my exams for, like, after the 7th grade we have exams for moving on, or this 8th grade. Failed is a strong word. I don't feel like failing, but my mother was devastated. And so I had to. There was even a point where I was going to private lessons to. There we go. To private lessons to, not private lesson, but like courses to learn German. I wish I was more serious into that decision of my of my parents, and I skipped that as well, and went to the computer club. We had computer clubs at that time to play games, and I remember that at that time there was like this huge going from analog phones, like home. We still had home phones. There was cell phones, but everybody had like the phone, the stationary phone at home, and they changed that from analog to digital, and the lines. And I remember that I was skipping like classes with like a friend of mine, and he lived a couple of streets back, and they changed, his number. So from the courses they couldn't reach his parents. However, our phones were not changed, so they reached us, and uh, asked my mother, is he sick or whatever? Why is he not coming to the classes that you're paying? So I was in ways kind of a naughty kid, so to speak. Just did stuff that was more appealing to me and more interesting.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I mean, to me, it doesn't sound like you were, like a naughty kid, but rather your attention and curiosity and interest was somewhere else.
Elsewhere. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then after when I went into 8th grade, I also there was again something that my father said, and after that exam, I received my grades, and my mother, she's like devastated, and she's like, "Oh, that's your grades are super low. They were just average, but they're super low. You're from a family of historians and people that use their brains, and why are you stupid or what? That's I'm super
Your father is a spelunking chemist.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm super super sad about this, and then she stormed off the room, and my father, he came to me and he said, because I was going to private lessons for mathematics, and he said, "You know what? We spent quite a lot of money just for you to learn mathematics, and obviously that was pointless. However, you didn't take any classes into like Bulgarian language, which was the other exam, and you had kind of okay grades there. And so, but either way, we're short on the investment front. So you have to think of some ways to, bring back that type of money somehow." And this is actually when I started my first job. I was 8th grade, and I started, writing short articles for like a magazine, and it was kind of okay-ish.
What kind of a magazine? What were you writing?
I was writing reviews of movies and books and concerts.
Nice.
So yeah, and obviously everything that was kind of interesting and appealing to me. So Lord of the Rings comes out, and I make some sort of a review for the movie. Or Yamato, the drummers of Japan, are visiting Bulgaria, and I say, well, can you arrange some sort of a ticket? I would love to go on that concert and write some sort of a review for it afterwards. So in certain ways, that taught me to be more responsible financially. And then afterwards, when I was in like 8th grade and onwards, I kind of became obsessed. I wouldn't say obsessed, but I became a huge fan of role-playing games, and I found a lot of people who are still my friends today. We don't play anymore, but it was nice to meet a different sort of, completely different type of people that you would communicate with, and you would create some sort of stories and some sort of world that was, and that was actually something that got me into maybe music writing and the things that I'm doing today. Because have you played role playing games like Dungeons and
Yeah,
Dragons?
I was going to ask. I was going to guess it was D&D probably.
Yeah, D&D also. There was like Masquerade, Vampire the Masquerade, a bunch of other like local games, but mostly D&D. Yeah.
Have you played Call of Cthulhu, the pen and paper?
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
as well.
that's our jam.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Mm.
And so the thing is that with this, you're kind of creating some sort of a story and some sort of a vibe. And every time we would go there and play, probably at one of my friends' place, and we would put some sort of a music playlist to it, and we'll listen to Warcraft music and medieval Total War, and would create these playlists. And just to get you into that mood, music was so important. And um and not only in the mood for playing, but also because that's a game that requires so much imagination and in a way like acting, and music was always helpful for that. So at that point I was throughout completely different ways I was introduced to music creation, FL Studio, Fruity Loops. It was called Fruity Loops back then. And I created this connection between music and not just telling a story, but putting a person into that story properly. And music is the shortcut of getting like a person within a story. That's the connection is the music, in my opinion. And yeah, long story short, 15 years later, or even more, here I am.
So that's really interesting. I didn't actually anticipate that. It sounds to me like, are you someone who's really into, like, when you think about these worlds, are you into the lore? Are you into the vibe of the world? Because it sounds to me like, based on that, I could guess that you were sort of like, when you write music, you're driven by the atmosphere, the vibe being like embedded in the world.
Yeah, the atmosphere and the vibe would be mostly the thing that I'm looking for. I'll give you an example from the film world. Have you watched The 13th Warrior?
No, I don't think so.
With Antonio Banderas, with the Vikings that get like a Arabian guy.
This doesn't sound familiar, but it sounds epic.
I highly recommend it.
Okay.
I think that you would love that film. It's
Nice.
I'm not sure why it's not very popular. It should be. It's basically like Vikings that are traveling and they end up kind of in the Arab worlds, and then they receive a message that their village is being raided by some sort of a monster. So they have to go back, and they go back to kind of rescue the village, and they take this Arab guy, Antonio Banderas. They take him with them, and so they end up in the score is by Jerry Goldsmith, fantastic score. So it's action, kind of very dark fantasy at a place where you wouldn't get dark fantasy as a genre. It didn't exist that much, but it is like this. So it's a very medieval kind of a film with a touch of supernatural, but it's actually not. Ugh, sorry, I spoiled it for you. Sorry, but it's
I won't remember that. I'm sure.
Yeah. So anyway, and every time the monsters come in the village to kidnap and murder people, there's like this mist that's coming, and then Jerry Goldsmith would use some sort of a piccolo, and you'll get like something very distant, maybe recorded as an overdub separately with a bunch of reverb. And that's it. That's like just da-dee-da, very high with lots of reverb, and then you see the mist. It doesn't have anything to do with Nordic culture, Nordic instruments. There's the only thing that's kind of connected to the film is the male choir. It's the score features a male choir, and then you have the Arabic instruments for Antonio Banderas' character. That's it, nothing else. But still, that is so much embedded into the atmosphere of the film itself that it becomes a necessary part. And you would say that, yeah, that's a motif. That's like a motif of the mist coming in, but it doesn't have to do with the storyline and with the ethnics of the storyline, to make it work. So, yeah, for me, vibe all the way.
Yeah. It also sounds, because I'm a very, like, even if I'm writing music for just myself, even if I don't have a movie or a video game to write for, I'm still kind of seeing like a movie in my head. Not specific like scenes, but the energy, the vibe, and the sort of the visual in a very, I guess, I can't say abstracted form, but it's not concretized, I guess, if that's even a word. That sounds pretty similar to what you experience.
Yeah, I also find it very hard to write music outside of that medium because of that. For me, it's very easy to write music for film because I'm used to it, and I have like a monitor up there, and I see the movie, and I just come up with these, I would say, even what's the word? It's not a decision that I make,
like a conscious
decision. Yeah, it's more of a
subconscious.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, so kind of embedded through. Maybe that's craft. I would say you could say that that's craft. So you know what you're doing, and you just do it. But when I see it, I don't think of the pacing of the film. I don't think of sync points. They just come by naturally. It's kind of maybe reflex was the word I was looking for. And when I'm writing for anything else that's not connected to picture, it becomes very hard for me, because then I have to actually think of this, kind of imagine it in my head.
Yeah. Bridging the gap between, so you started playing the piano at age 6.
Yep.
And then what age were you around the time when you started role playing and started thinking about the music stuff?
I would say around 13 to 14. And I kept doing the piano lessons till I was like 12th grade. It was 18, and then continued in the National Academy of Music. But before that, I was introduced to Fruity Loops rather, but kind of by accident. And I immediately became hooked to this idea of being able to write your own music. And at the time, it was to create beats for like hip hop beats. That was our jam.
That was the accident you talked about? Or?
Yeah. It started like this, and then again throughout life is a series of weird connections. So I was a member of a forum. Back then, forums were still a thing. And it was a forum for exchanging ideas about fantasy music and fantasy books and music and films, and also role-playing games as well. We did like written role-playing games, kind of like playing the D&D, but on a forum, which was weird. But And there was like this Bulgarian game called Knights of Honor that came around that time, and it had this soundtrack that was um, medieval and very, very medieval and cinematic as well. And there was like this guy who did it. It was a Bulgarian guy called Borislav Slavov. And probably you're familiar with him. He did Baldur's Gate 3, and he's kind of a star in the video game world. And but at that time he was just the guy who did Knights of Honor, and I was so impressed with that score that I just wrote on the forum. Do you know? Have you played this game? It has a fantastic soundtrack. I mean, the game is great, but the music is much, much better. I absolutely love it. Then one person on the forum said, "Oh, that's my husband." So yeah, long story short, I met Bobby. I think I was 15 or 16 at that time. And I was like, "Oh, I really want to write music like you." And I know Fruity Loops. That's it, basically. But all the sounds there are kind of like they're shit. So that you have this very crappy synths and maybe some one-shot samples that are kind of interesting. And then he told me at that time it was Giga Studio and MIDI routing MIDI channels and whatever. It was super complicated. So he said, "Okay, well, you need to get accustomed to this software. It's called Giga Studio, and then you have to buy your banks of, samples for the Giga sampler, and you have to buy them online." And for me, it was super strange, and I didn't understand anything. And then a couple of years went by, and I actually got. I think the first thing was East West. The orchestra gold edition. It was still on Contact, so yeah, that's in a way how it started. While I was playing the piano badly.
Yeah, and before we move on from that, just touching on video games, because I suspected that you were quite into video games, but if you had to sort of like mention a few notable mentions in terms of like some of the most inspiring video games for you from your childhood or sort of growing up time, what would be notable ones?
Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 3, StarCraft and World of Warcraft. These are the ones that kind of were my first connection to games. And they were very... For example, I'm not a huge sci-fi fan, so I didn't know Warhammer. And at that time, I haven't watched Alien and something. So for me, StarCraft was like, wow, that's super, super weird and interesting. But also Heroes of Might and Magic 3, and later on 4. I maybe I'm one of the few people on Earth that like Heroes of Might and Magic 4.
I have quite a few friends who enjoy it, I think.
Oh, okay. All right. Then I also very much like Baldur's Gate 2. That was my introduction to Dungeons and Dragons, in a way, because I really wanted to play role-playing games at a time where no such games were available, at least for me. And then suddenly there was like this magazine, PC magazine. It's called PC Mania. It was called, and they every month they did a new issue with like a CD with demo games, and you would get the CD for free, and you would play maybe some demos and like a game and buy it. And one month it was just one CD branded with Baldur's Gate, which was super weird because in Bulgaria we didn't have branded CDs, buying CDs was not a thing. You could buy CDs, but most of them were pirate discs, so it was like illegitimate copies. This is something that we learned much later on. But then you get like this CD that's like beautiful fantasy-ish, like the brown. I think it was brown, and I was like, oh, they actually gave us a free game. I'll try it. So I installed it, and I spent about 50-something minutes creating my character. I had no idea what I'm doing. Obviously, I studied. You know, now you know how much I studied German, but I never studied English up to that point. And so I was trying to figure out what everything in the menu meant in English. And obviously you had some dialogues that you had to choose from. So I created my character, started playing the game, and was super hooked. And Baldur's Gate 2, you start in a dungeon, so you have to kind of crawl outside of the dungeon, and then the thing starts happening, you know, the entire adventure. So basically I ended up from the dungeon, and then it says, oh, thank you for playing the demo of the game. And I was like, what? How big is this game? You know, and then at the same night I was at my friends, friends of my family, of my father and my mother, and we went there. There was like a boy kind of older than me, and they were richer than us, so he would he had a better computer and better games and so forth. And he was like, oh, I received this game today, a super stupid game. And I was like, oh, what's the name of the game? And he was like, oh, it's called Baldur's Gate. Super stupid. Oh, this is so boring. I was like, oh, really? I actually love this game. So, and he gave it to me because he detested it. And it was like a 7 or 6 CDs or 7 CDs of a game. And yeah, so that was my introduction to this world of fantasy. The saddest thing in my career so far is that I don't get to write as much fantasy music as I would love to. So yeah, that's the only thing that I'm kind of sad about. And as for other games, I would say Myst, Age of Empires. Strangely enough, a Bulgarian company called Hemimon Games, they did Tsar, The Burden of the Crown, which was a very nice game. I remember it was the first Bulgarian game, and for me that was super special, and it was really nice with nice aesthetics, and I liked it. It reminds kind of reminds me to Age of Empires, and funnily enough, I became the composer for Hemimon Games years later. Yeah, what else? Half-Life, obviously, Counter-Strike, but that was something that we played together at school. Diablo. Yeah, I remember when we were skipping school, and Diablo was a thing, and you could. That's super funny. I'm not sure if you've done this before, but we would take floppy disks, and we would put our character onto the floppy disk, because the character that you created in the game was some sort of an extension file. Some like the name of the character, like for example, John.zxp or something, some sort of a file extension that the Diablo the game read. So we would take a floppy disk, go to the computer club, play, like skip school, play there, upgrade our character, then save it onto the floppy disk and go back home and exchange it. Yeah, so
nice. That's kind of like a dongle that you were
in a way, yeah,
plugging in. Yeah, that's
and
nice.
you would also plug different other things that would exist on that computer club machine, like viruses and yeah. So
yeah. Those
unknowingly,
those would go around back then, certainly. So going from Fruity Loops and having that East-West library thing, what was the next thing? And at this point, were you thinking like, this is what I want to do with my life, this is what I want to turn into a profession? Or when did that sort of come into the picture?
Not really. I was chronologically, I was playing in bands. I was playing in a Christian rock band, even though I'm kind of atheist or agnostic at least. And simultaneously to that, I would create my own music, try to write some sort of music and make sense of, all the instruments that I had. And I got the track licensed throughout the band I was playing, because I was the front man of the band, was a PR, and he knew a person that knew a person who was making a film, like a documentary, with very, very small budget. So they needed some sort of music. And he was kind enough to take like a track of mine, which in hindsight, really bad stuff. And to license that to that movie. And this became a whole new experience, because I started, I went to the premiere and watched the movie with my music. And obviously for me, I was super excited about that. And then I started doing more and more work for commercials and adverts, and here and there the arranging gig. I started working for a studio, doing like additional arranging work and some editing if needed, some really simple stuff. And right around when I was like 18, I decided that I started earning some money from that as well. And I decided that if I am to continue this, I have to pursue this more like professionally. And that's how I ended up in the National Academy of Music, where I studied orchestration and conducting, choral conducting.
Was that let me gather my thoughts there. So when you started after that movie where you got your really, really bad track in, that's not a judgment because I haven't heard it, but by your terms,
just believe me. Yeah.
Okay, I'll believe you. I mean, listening to something I did at that age, I can understand how that can be the case. Did you get those other projects that followed and allowed you to get a bit of a thing going? Did that happen through your connections, or how did you get that ball rolling at that phase?
Yeah. Well, again, I'll give you an example for that. The director of that film, like of that documentary, later on did a bunch of other films as part of, because he was studying film at one of the universities here. And he had a bunch of projects like documentaries and stuff that needed some sort of music, and we started working together. And at the same time, he was a second director of another student. And funnily enough, they cannot stand each other right now. They cannot talk to each other. But at that time, they were kind of like friends. They worked on this, like this film, short feature film, not feature, sorry, short film. And the first guy, kind of introduced me to the other director and said, well, I know that you're looking for a composer. This is the guy that I've worked with. And that film was a period drama. So kind of right up my alley. And I was like, oh yeah, I would love to create the music for that. And this opened like a new branch of different possibilities, working with the second guy. And last year I did a movie directed by that same person, who was the highest grossing film in Bulgaria for the past 30 years. So that's kind of you're building these relationships, and by word of mouth, you're kind of adding to those connections and expanding, so to say.
And
And
at this time, were you completely just self-taught, or you took piano lessons, obviously, but were you working from like a basis of what you taught yourself? And
that's right. Yeah, there was nothing that would be accessible for me at the time. There was not even YouTube yet, I think. And I would listen and I would search for like tutorials and stuff, mostly for film music. But that was very scarcely, found. It was really hard to get to that sort of information. So it was mostly trial and error. Obviously, I had the foundation of the piano, even though my teacher, she was, uh, she taught me piano, but she didn't teach me like music theory. That was not part of. Obviously, I knew, but we never took specific classes into. I know what a fourth note is, or what an eighth note, or a 16th, what a triplet is. I knew the intervals, but for example, we would never sync the intervals, or we would never speak about harmony in the sense of this is the tonic chord, this is the subdominant, this is the dominant chord. And this is something that I had to learn later on when I was like 12th grade. And it was kind of hard to get by because I had to learn a lot of theory for a single year. And harmony was in a way easy because I was playing I was improvising in that band when I was playing the piano and the keys. So I would know, and I'm not sure how to describe this, but I also have some sort of a harmonic listening. So I kind of listen vertically. It's very hard for me to listen horizontally, or in terms of like transcribing a melody. That would be really hard for me. Much harder than, for example, transcribing a chord, and the function, because I kind of know what it is.
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so harmony lessons, in a way, they became easier for me.
Yeah. What was it like getting? You said, was it National Academy of Music?
Mm-hmm.
So that's was that in Sofia?
Yeah.
Yeah. What
When I
was?
was applying, we had the exams were piano, so you had to play 3 pieces, like a Baroque piece, a romantic piece. Oh, sorry, 4 pieces, like a romantic piece, or kind of either romantic, or in my case, I played Debussy, so impressionist music. You had to play like a sonata, so Mozart or Beethoven. In my case, it was Beethoven. And the fourth thing is you had to play like a Bulgarian composer, and like classical Bulgarian composer. And then that was the first exam. The second was theory. The third one was music dictation, which was two voice dictation and a single voice dictation. Then harmony, and last one was music knowledge. I won't be able to translate it, but basically they give you a list of 100 pieces, and then they play a snippet of that piece, and then you have to, say, oh, this is, I don't know, Brahms, or this is Stravinsky, and it was super easy for the for the Western, or not Western, but like outside of Bulgaria composers. So you had like Western music, also Russian music, and so forth. And then we got to the Bulgarian things, and the first one was a choral piece, which was it's kind of well known. So I was, oh, this is super easy. And then we got like a track for a Bulgarian composer that's like and that's the excerpt, and what's this? I have no idea. So yeah, and you could say that if you know like the composer, the aesthetic of the composer, but there were like 5 or 6 names on the list with the same aesthetic, so I had no idea who that guy is. Still don't to this day.
So when you went into that entrance exam, did you had you taught yourself music theory at this point? How did you prepare for that if you came from like a self-taught background?
Well, it's a funny story connected to my uncle again. So my his teacher, like painting teacher in school, was friends with my mom, and obviously with my uncle, and his wife was she's a very, very good and very professional piano player. She's a professor at the academy. So at a certain point, I was like saying to my mother, Mom, I really want to do something with music professionally. And she was like, I have no idea how to help you, honestly. And my teacher, she was also like a piano teacher. She was like, well, I can teach you piano, but nothing more than that. I cannot teach you how to write music. This is what you want, I can see, but I have no way of teaching you this. So my mother said, what we could do is I could arrange like a meeting between yourself and that piano professor, the wife of my uncle's teacher. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, let's try it. I mean, she's a professor at the academy, so that's some sort of a connection, and she might be able to help me out. So I went there, and I brought like a CD of my music, like a demo reel, and I was like, oh, hello, super nice to meet you, and thank you for spending the time. Listen, I brought like a disc of my music, like a short film, like the one that I was introduced to, the short film, a bunch of documentaries I did. And here's some of my music. Would you care to listen to it? And she was like, no, I don't want to. I mean, I don't have the time for it. And even if I do, I have nothing to say to you because I don't understand anything about writing music. And I was like, that was the first time I met a person that was so against, she was not helpful at all. And then she said, well, the only thing that I could do is I could give you this number of this lady. She's a teacher at the academy. She's a jazz piano player and also a composer. And she might be able to help you. I don't know. Good luck. And that was it. So I went to that other lady again with the CD, but this time not so enthusiastic about it. So I went there, and she was super helpful. She was like, yeah, let's listen to every single one of those, and we listened to all the tracks. She listened to all the tracks throughout their entirety, and then she said, well, I think that you absolutely have to study in the Academy of Music, but can you play the piano? And I was like, yeah, I can, kind of average. And she was like, okay, now you need to prepare this. Do you have a teacher? I said, yeah. She said, okay, prepare this and this and this. And you have only 1 year to get into like the serious stuff, the harmony and the like solfège training. And she gave me 2 numbers of 2 professors at the academy. And she said, these are the people that you need to contact, and you have to start working about this really, really hard. And at that time, I was not 100% sure that I wanted to do this. That was a phase of my life that I was kind of obsessed with Japanese culture. So I also wanted to study Japanese. So in order for me to study Japanese, there was at that time there was only one place that you could learn this, in the Sofia University, and the exam was with English, and English was something that at that time I was learning in school. So like from 8th grade, I decided to start learning English, and yeah, so I simultaneously to the music stuff, I also applied for Japanese, but the what's the word? The requirements for this were very, very high, so it was very hard for me to get into that specialty. There were like 2 people from the entire country that were accepted. And obviously I was not, even though I had like almost perfect grades, like 98% out of 100, and I was not accepted for Japanese. I was at the like below the line, so if somebody dropped, I would get in, but I was accepted to study English, like professional, like English literature, and which was also something that was appealing for me at the time. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I had the music exam like next week, and I was like, oh, I'll try it. I put a lot of work for a year and something, and so I'll try. I'll go to the exams and see how it goes. And I was accepted. So then I had to make the choice. It was not a very hard choice per se. It was an easy choice. So I decided to go with music.
So do you speak Japanese fluently? No.
No. Wanted to, but yeah. But afterwards, I wanted to. She passed away sadly soon after I became part of the academy. But I wanted to kind of pay my respects to that composer lady who kind of spent her time listening to my work, and I went to one of her concerts, and it was a concert for solo double bass and delay effects. So
okay, so low instrument with delays sounds very interesting.
So it was very interesting and abstract and avant-garde, so to say. Definitely not up my alley. So, but yeah, and then I was I went into this institution, I would say, and I learned a lot from my teachers there. But again, I entered this very old and not very up to par with contemporary trends institution that's, I'm trying to find like more delicate words to put
the very politically correct way of saying it.
Yeah,
constructively said.
Yeah. And I was the guy, the young boy that wanted to write music for film. And first off, I was accepted like into a composition class, and the teacher that I was assigned, and I kind of was in a situation that I wouldn't be able to switch to a different teacher without a lot of problems at the end, because he was the chief of composition, faculty, and he was very much into avant-garde classical music, like those kind of sounds, and which was not my thing, and we didn't see eye to eye, definitely. And then I would get into my conducting classes, and the first year we have like theory of conducting and basis of conducting, and that was like one teacher. And on one of the rehearsals, like classes that I had, they started chatting between them, like the teacher and his assistant and the piano player. They started talking about some sort of rehearsals that they're going to do after hours, for a Lord of the Rings concert that was going to be held in Abu Dhabi. And they were assembling like a male choir to send over to Abu Dhabi. So it was kind of a private gig. And I was like blown away and said, I'm sorry to interrupt, but is there a way for me to visit this rehearsal? Because The Lord of the Rings is my favorite soundtrack. And then my teacher said, no. Yeah, go and listen to Brahms and I was like, no, I'm listening to Brahms, but Lord of the Rings, that's my favorite film score of all time, The Fellowship of the Ring especially. And then he said, well, that's not serious music. Don't waste your time on this. And even though the rehearsals were there and I was his student, and I didn't want anything else than just listen to it, be a fly on the wall and listen to that rehearsal. They didn't invite me to this. And everything that I was doing for film music was regarded very badly, and it was perceived very badly at the academy. And so, yeah, later on, I also had some issues with my orchestration teacher, on because of that. I wouldn't say issues. He's a great composer, and he basically gave me like bread in my hands, as we like to say here in Bulgaria. But at a certain point, I gave like a film score to him, like presented a film score to him, and he said, "No, you're a great orchestrator, and stick to what you can do. Don't do anything with writing music, especially for film. That's just super super bad. It's not a piece of art, and so forth." So everything that on one hand, I had super positive experience in the National Academy of Music with the connection to music itself. On the other hand, everything that I loved about music, that's like film scores and contemporary art and samples and synthesizers and everything that I'm geeking about, that was not regarded well from that academic society, so to speak. So it was a very weird experience. I'm not sad that I took this route, and it definitely helped me a lot. And later on, when I got accepted into conducting, I now had a different teacher, and she was great. She was the conductor of the Sofia Boys Choir. Sadly, very sadly, she passed away last year, but amazing person. And she recorded the boys choir in Arva.
Nice.
Yeah, and she taught me a lot about music phrasing and how to build up some sort of a phrase using breaths and using crescendo and like making the, let's see if that's even a word in English. Give me a second. Yes, there is. So agogic accent. Do you know this? What this means, or?
No, I don't think so.
So that's like an accent that you emphasize, or not an accent, but like kind of like you emphasize a note to give it a different meaning. So, for example, if you get Schindler's List, dee da dee da dee da 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 dee da dee da da, and if you do dee da dee da dee da dee da dee da dee da da, and you have some sort of a direction where the music is going. And she taught me this because obviously with conducting you have to try to show this using hands, eyebrows, whatever means necessary. But at that point I actually learned that you can also do the same thing with MIDI and when you're writing music. And so now music becomes different. You have different ways of expressing it using, obviously we have limited means. We have expression, we have mod wheel, maybe filtering if we are to tweak some of the patches ourselves to create this sort of breath into the music. So these are things that I'm super helpful at. Otherwise I wouldn't know this. But when it comes to writing music for film, I was not very lucky to get into that position.
Yeah, well, it sounds like at least the upside of the academy time was maybe to fuel you to do whatever it was that you actually wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also I learned a lot about film music by speaking and being acquainted to people from kind of in the same situation where I was, but from the Academy of Film Scoring and theater. I'm not a huge fan of theater, but I had some friends there, and with the films that I was doing and the short films, I became acquainted with those people, and we started doing some sort of experiments and art films together. And I started working with different directors, and everybody would have their own way of perceiving the picture. And then I would see that, for example, when they come here, not here, but when they come in my studio, in my home studio, and they would perceive the picture differently from what I'm seeing. And then I started to, oh, okay, all right, this means this and this, and maybe music is showing a bit too much, and then it doesn't need to. One of the best lessons that I learned was for that when I was introduced for that short film that I mentioned. There was like a music editor on set for that project together with a sound editor, and both of there was two ladies who were super friends. The music editor is a lady that she's pretty old now. Let me see, IMDb. Oh, she did a film in 2024. Okay. All right.
Still going.
Yeah, and she has more than 100 films behind her. And I did some sort of a low drone-ish for a scene where a boy plays. It's the name of the film is called Playing Marbles, Do you know the game that where you're throwing like those
Yeah.
balls of marble, and it's called playing marbles, and that boy is playing marbles at home, and his father kind of there's a problem, an issue within the marriage, so they're kind of estranged, so it's a very tense situation, and the boy is playing into this long hallway, kind of like Stanley Kubrick-ish, very dark, and he's playing, and then he enters the room of his parents, opens a drawer, and then sees a gun, because the father, he's an army guy, and so the gun is kind of essential to what's coming next in the film, which is in the ending, the finale of the film, which is basically the boy shooting either himself or somebody else into in the school. So what I did was like this low drone and cello and basses, kind of rumbling somewhere down, and kind of very mysterious, but also very tense. And then she told me, "Why do you need this? I mean, what the viewer is seeing is just a boy playing a game. And then you're doing this sort of music, and basically it becomes kind of a British drama, not drama, crime series where the murderer is coming in, and you're anticipating for something bad to happen." And at first I was very upset that somebody would comment on my genius writing, music writing.
How dare they?
Yeah, exactly. But then I started thinking about this and said, okay, this is actually a very nice example of how powerful music is, because you can either manipulate, you can manipulate basically the viewer into, emotions, through the music. And yeah, that was maybe one of the best lessons that I learned when it comes to film and music.
Yeah. No, it completely changes the context of what's happening. So you started Strezov sampling in 2012. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. I think we started a bit earlier, recording stuff. We did a lot of sessions together with Jasper Blanc and Oliver from Audio Oli. But yeah, my company, we did our first product in December 2020. Yeah.
And I think you're the same age as me, if I saw correctly. When
I'm 36.
Yeah, so you were born 89, right?
89, yes.
Yeah, so same year as me. So when you started Strezov sampling, you were what, 21, 22? Or
I guess so. I have to open the calculator.
But it seems super early. Like, so where was this in the timeline of doing your studying?
I was studying at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a very early age to start a company and start doing stuff like this.
In a way, I didn't start a sampling company per se. Again, it all started in terms of like an accident. So,
oops.
Yeah, oops.
Started a company.
Basically, so what happened was this. I continued writing music for film, and I started getting more and more requests and projects that I had to work on, and I had to create my own personal company for this. On a separate note, I was a member back then where still forums were a thing. I became a member of Sounds Online, which was the East-West forums, and this is where I would be able to discuss music with people that have similar interests. You know, at that time, there were very few very few people that would be interested in film scores and samples, sample libraries, and digital workstations and film music. And I became friends at that time with Alex. Alex is one of our product supervisors here at Strezov Sampling, together with Javor. But at that time, Alex, had very, very similar interests, but Alex was living in a different city. So essentially, I was surrounded with the rock people, with people from my university, but nobody was interested in what I was interested in. So I had to find somewhere to get that information and to discuss it with people and maybe get some feedback on my tracks. That was Sounds Online. And on Sounds Online, I created this this post showcasing a couple of my tracks that I recorded with friends from the academy. And kind of people loved them, and one of the persons reached out and said, "Oh, I have a piece that might need some quartet recordings. Can you organize this for me? Can you create this for me?" And I was like, "Sure, I can," but that was recorded in my bedroom. Keep in mind, and I have just like at that time I had like a Rode NTK mic, and the person was like, "Yeah, sure, yeah, let's do it," and not sure if I can say that. Yeah, probably I can say this, but that's Ted Reedy. Ted Reedy did the latest Diablo game. He's a brilliant composer, but at that time he was still starting out, kind of as myself. And from that recording that he did, I received an email from a person called Jasper Blank, and that was like years ago. And he was like, "Oh, are you recording stuff? Are you a contractor?" And I was like, "No." So, and this is how this kind of contracting thing happened, which later on I kind of let go in a way. So, created for music together with a bunch of talented people here in Bulgaria. So that's a completely different thing that I'm a kind of a investor in it. So partial, that I own part of the business, but not more than that. So in a way, everything started out as some sort of a accident. I never wanted to do anything like this, to record orchestras or create sample libraries.
That recording must have been pretty good if Jasper calls you or sends you a message. And
yeah, that's right. I don't think it was very good, to be honest.
okay,
It was done in my bedroom, and probably my mother was cooking in the next room or something.
Was Jasper doing any sampling back then? Was he only doing his own music?
It was sampling. It was yeah. And
okay.
We started doing a lot of things together, and obviously now he has performance samples, but we still continue to work together to this day. And it's super funny because I'm not sure if I should say this, but he's younger than us. Do you know this?
He is? Really?
Yeah, he is.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
How old is he?
I don't know for sure. I think it's maybe he should be 32 or 33 currently.
Really?
So when I started doing these recordings, he wouldn't be able to drink in the States. Yeah. That's how crazy talented he is. He's absolutely and one thing that I really always tell Jasper that he needs to put more work into that is writing music, because he's a brilliant composer. And
yeah, agreed.
yeah, he just when you listen to somebody's music and he's, how come does he write like this and I don't? Yeah. But when he reached out, I guess he was, I never thought he was younger than me because he's so experienced and knows so much and he hears so much. And yeah.
Yeah. So what was the first Strezov sampling release?
It was Storm Choir. That was
Oh, yeah.
co-produced by Jasper and Oliver. So at that time we released it, and it became a huge hit because it was something that was not something that people would be accustomed to listening to. And this opened a completely new way of communication, and we were able to go to the NAMM show. Then we met Hendrik and the Orchestra Tools team. We're huge friends with them. And then you end up in this community of people that are very much interested into what you're interested in. So that was interesting. That was strange. But again,
Yeah.
for me, it's always been about writing music.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was I've heard quite a lot of Jasper stuff as well, and I expected that to be his primary thing, and then performance samples sort of on the side. But maybe it seems, based on what I've seen, that it's kind of flipped. Maybe
I think lately it's kind of been like this. Yeah. Yeah.
Bitten by the sample bug.
Yeah. Well, Jasper, if you're listening, write some music. It's about time. Yeah.
It's time.
It's time. It's time to write some music.
Cool. What are your thoughts on sampling? Where sampling is today? Like, what is good? What is still missing? What's on the horizon? Where is the whole thing going?
I think sampling is kind of reached some sort of a plateau ish. And I think that there's due to many decisions, technical decisions and so forth, a lot of company are forced out of business. Like piracy protection, for example. And I think that the lack of upgrades on some of the samplers stuff is making people do the same thing over and over again. And that's just doing the same thing and just presenting it with new clothes. So that's one thing that I don't like. What I like, however, is because I remember how things were when I started out, because there was nothing out there, and nowadays it's much easier to present some sort of an idea or just browse to a vast catalog with different things and get inspiration from somewhere. This was not existing when I was starting out, so that's a huge plus. I'm interested in seeing how AI will come into the equation, especially when it comes to notation music, stuff that's not real time. We'll see. Yeah. However, AI, that's for me, that's something that's very boring in a way. I find it because everybody speaks about AI, how cool it is or how bad it is or whatever, and I'm like, this is energy that can be used towards something more exciting. And we for Primal Ethnic Orchestra, we shared a clip, a speedwriting clip, not speedwriting, like a time-lapse clip of our painter, our artist, Buyan Yurdanov, how he created the cover artwork. And it's like this kind of a Viking on a ship, and then you have like drooling wolf on top of him, and he's with with an axe. And then you have a lot of those like tree branches and roots, like the roots of evil. And if you speak to Buyan, he would maybe, I don't know, talk about this for half an hour, about the roots of evil and how they are red like blood at the beginning, and then they go up and they became like white-ish, and then you have the banner, which is the symbol of hope, and then the symbol of civilization is the banner, and then you have the darkness within that wolf, and so forth and so forth. And just listening to that person be passionate about their art is ultimately making you passionate about your art, because you're saying, oh, he's done this, that's super cool, why don't I put that much thought into some of the stuff that I'm doing? So I find this much more exciting than like a machine where you write down, do this and this. So
yeah I'm also personally more interested. I'm starting to think like, or trying to think in terms of music. I think the only AI thing that is somehow present is some of the mixing tools, like some of the Sonable stuff. But that's even like, I think that's more like AI trained rather than actually using anything on board. But yeah, I mean, to me, they are tools. Ultimately, what people will care about is whether the music is good and whether it, does what it's intending to do. Ultimately, that's what I care most about, even as a composer. Like, because valuable, creative, artistic experiences are valuable, no matter how they are created. It's really the vision behind it that is really the most important thing. Right. So I'm really not against AI tools. In many ways, I'm for them because they make creating faster in many ways. And that means we can create more art, and that would be better for the world. I think the stuff that is, kind of sloppy and just generated quickly is, it's probably not going to survive the filter of whether it does that or not. So I'm not, horribly concerned about that. But yeah, do you, by the way, do you want to take a short break, or how are you feeling?
Up to you.
Okay, cool. Well, I can keep going for now.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But if at any point you want to take a break, use the bathroom or take a snack,
it's okay for me.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Lastly, touching on sampling, I was wondering. Obviously, we mentioned performance samples. Are there any other companies in the industry that you're really sort of excited about in terms of sampling? What they're doing.
I love what musical sampling are doing. I'm using the woodwinds kind of constantly. I like the stuff that orchestral tools are doing, but more into the variety of libraries like like Metropolis Arc, for example. I love Metropolis Arc too. Very beautiful and intimate library. I love what they did with Arvo Pärt, and his the Tallinn library. I like the stuff that Sonic Couture are doing. The marimba, for example. Not on the sampling stuff per se, but I love the unfinished Matt Bowler and the presets he's doing for Omnisphere, for Zebra. I'm in ways excited about Christian Hansen's Crowhill. I bought a guitar. It's called what is it called? Filth?
I'm not very familiar with the newest releases. I was following it more when they started releasing stuff, but I haven't been on the ball as of late.
Let's see. Yeah, Filth. It's called Filth. It's a nice, very simple product, but does its work like as in a guitar. Um, I also like the I will need some help with this.
Sure.
Was it Westwood Instruments? Hang on.
The novella stuff.
No, I mean, sorry, I like Westwood stuff for sure, but that's not what I was thinking about. I was thinking about the Celtic library, the Elven thing.
Is it like a vocal library?
It has a lot of instruments, together with vocals and stuff. Oh, I'll remember the name. Ugh.
Is it like a new release?
It's a new release, yeah.
Is it Fracture Sounds?
Yeah, Fracture Sounds. Yeah, thank you. Fracture Sounds. And Eduardo Tarilonte, that was actually one of the first libraries that I got outside of the East-West ecosystem. That was Era. And a completely different sampling approach, which kind of blew my mind because everything with up to that point with East West was super produced and everything was super clean, and then you would get Eduardo's stuff that has those tiny human imperfections. Obviously, most of them are controllable, so they're recorded on top of the recording. But that kind of appealed to me a lot because it adds like a human touch to the whole thing.
Yeah. Shout out to Chevanai, the library.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's
Yes.
pronounced, but I remember using that actually with Strezov Votan.
Yes.
So I feel like they paired together so well because you obviously went with the Lord of the Rings vibe with Votan to a certain extent. And then Chevanai was basically the same, but for the high.
For the high, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, well, Shore, I think he used the boy singer for a lot of the high stuff, but similar vibe still.
I also like the like stuff from Red Room Audio. What they did, the Traveler series, for example. What else? Sonokinetic. Not a huge fan of the phrase builder libraries, but they sound great. Yeah, I also like the guys who did Taiko Creator 9, and which was X 9-volt audio. They did a Taiko library and Tom's library that was super cool as well. I still use it to this day. Heaviosity, Audio Imperia as well. So Keep Forest libraries. So there's a ton of nice and interesting sounds that are I feel that because you asked me what the situation is right now with sample libraries, I think that the business has shrunk in a way since COVID, similar to the gaming industry. And now with AI, again, people are kind of not very much into investing a lot of stuff into sample libraries. So all those companies that created this unique and inspiring content, some of them are doing less and less stuff nowadays, which is a shame because essentially they all have their own way of, like, their own sonic signature. And we spoke about Jasper for, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes, and I didn't speak about performance samples, but performance samples, great stuff, great stuff, and Jasper is definitely a person that has their own sonic imprint onto the samples, which is something that even if you dislike it or like it, it has a character, which is something that I try to do with our stuff. Maybe it's not for somebody, for everybody, but it has its own distinct character, so that it's unique and tailored to a specific need.
Yeah, that's definitely been one of the really important points when it comes to sampling. A lot of people ask me for recommendations of what to buy, and I always say, like, it depends entirely on what you want to do. Like, if there is a sound of a movie or a series or a video game that you like, you can tell me what that is, and I can try and pair you with some of the libraries that go for it. But music is so complex and convoluted, and when you're recording something, it's so specific in terms of like what are you going to capture, because everything needs to be kind of baked into those samples: the intent, the style, the space, the players, the instruments, the recording, the expressions, the articulations, everything. And even if there are so many ways to play a single articulation even. So you really need to narrow it down. And I think, I don't know if sample library companies have been sort of, some have, like for example, your company, but I still think like there's still room for leaning heavier into specific sounds, because there's still a lot of stuff that we aren't really catered to. Obviously, it's unsure how AI is going to play into this.
Yeah, this sounds like what, for example?
Well, I mean, just like a specific tone, like texture is a world of its own. Like there's so many tiny details that can go into texture, and how you tell players to play, even beyond just what you can notate. I mean, this is probably an area where my terminology isn't going to be sufficient, but things like that, giving them reference points of a certain soundtrack, which is obviously something that you do with your libraries a lot. So I think there's still room for that, because maybe I don't think I've ever approached a sample library, buying something or getting something or whatever else in the way of, I just want something general. Like, it's always a sound that I'm chasing as a composer.
Yep.
So I've never really even understood the general, this is like the orchestral sample library to get. It might be like a library to get for this specific aim of writing a soundtrack sounding like John Williams, or sounding like whomever else, how Howard Shore. So yeah, I still think there's definitely room for a lot of specificity, but again, it's unclear how AI is going to play into that.
Yeah, because that is, again, touching on the subject of aesthetics. It depends on how much reference points you're giving AI. Because, for example, if you took like Beethoven's Fifth, and then you listen to like Claudio Abbado and Karajan and Bernstein and whoever else, you can hear, like Seiji Ozawa, for example, you can hear that all of these recordings completely sound different. Here I am blurred again. No, sorry. Maybe there is a way for me to disable this. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Autofocus tends to be a bit difficult for sure, but
yeah,
it's fine.
I don't have any app for the camera. Sorry. Yeah,
it's okay. You can just wave your hand.
Yeah, and maybe it's better for people to watch me blurred, but yeah.
No, so. no. This handsome Bulgarian man, we need him on the screen.
Yeah, you're very kind. Thank you. So yeah, I think that there are different ways of saying something, like musically, and AI would be able to maybe compile a list of 3 or 4 things, like 3 or 4 reference points as recordings, but not more. So I don't know. Yeah, you in a way you're right. Even if you compare, essentially true legato is kind of recorded the same everywhere, and you would get like performance samples, Spitfire, orchestral tools, our stuff like a flatus, and all of those will sound different. They would behave differently, even though essentially it's the same musical material that had it recorded.
Yeah. Cool. Slightly looping back to the composition side. I mean, we touched on AI. Times are changing quite rapidly, and someone who's getting into music composition now is probably, maybe a bit confused, maybe a bit worried, not knowing where the AI stuff is going to go. Obviously, hopefully, someone is going to become a composer because they want to become a composer. But if you had to give like a key piece of advice to an aspiring composer today, what would you tell them? Like what should they focus on? What should they pay attention to?
What I'm about to say is not necessarily connected to music itself. If they want to write music for a specific media, they should be able to first leave their ego at the door, and secondly, they should be able to talk and to talk with different people. And in a way, our profession is very psychological in ways. So if I'll try to give an example of what I'm about to say. For this film that I did last year, the one that's like the box office smasher. So it's a movie about a Bulgarian football player, drama. Doesn't have a happy end. So the ending of the movie was because that person dies in a car crash, and so we don't see the car crash. But we see, kind of like in La La Land, we see like how it could have been, like the alternative finale. So the dream of himself and his family going to the vacation, because he was a workaholic and he skipped family for, playing football. So at the end of the film, before he gets on the car, he's like, oh, we're going to that vacation time on the beach that we talked about so many years ago. And this is how the film ends, as if they're on the beach, and it's shot on a handheld camera. And when we got to this point, that was basically where my job has ended, because throughout the credits, with one tiny exception before that, but throughout the credits they have a license song, and throughout that ending they also have a license song, which is very nice. And it's a beautiful song, very well orchestrated, recorded, old school recorded in the 60s, but still very beautiful, full like orchestra, starts with the harp, beautiful singer. Yeah. But the problem is that the song is very doesn't have that much dynamic, like emotional dynamics. It's kind of straight, doesn't have like a climax or whatever. And I suggested to the filmmakers, to the director and the filmmakers, I said, listen, what I would suggest that we do is that we do some sort of on the second verse of the song, we start adding those swells on top of the song because you have the license for it, and you obtain like an additional license for like arrangement on top of that thing, and then we do like very soft swells on top of that, going very big at the final chorus. And they said, sure, okay, that's fine. And then I did something that they liked very much. But the true testament of this was that I've seen the movie 8 or 9 times in cinema, and a couple of those were just to go there to watch the audience. And every time we get to those swells, a lot of people start crying because that's not music that you notice. It's not a counter melody. It's just chords that are added on top of that raw kind of recording, and it's not noticeable. You cannot understand, but people were so thrown by that emotion because the track becomes kind of bigger, and that decision is I would say, psychological decision, where you would say, here is something that we can do to add to the movie, because the movie is bigger than the music. In this case, the music has to serve the movie at the end. The composer has to serve the movie. And yeah, a lot of people got very emotional at that point. And, the director came in and said, you know what? I was kind of skeptical that would make sense at all, but I think it does, because this really makes people very emotional about it. And there's another segment of the film, kind of at the middle, where Bulgaria, there's a match between, it's called Baby Socks. That's the name of the track. And there is a football match between Bulgaria and Belgium, and Bulgaria wins, and it's a very big moment for our country, because we didn't have anything, like we didn't have like a big football team or something, and that person, got against like some of the best players in the world and won. So the scene, that's a long sequence where we get, training stuff, and he's taking his wife is giving him baby socks, the socks of their newborn baby. He puts them into his own socks while he's playing, and then you get a sequence made of documentary footage of goals and from parts of the match, and then different people, his friends and his family, watching kind of in real time on the black and white screen TVs. And then at the end of this, when Bulgaria wins, then we get some like shots, exterior shots of people with the flag, waving the flag, and then we have the anthem, the national anthem of the of Bulgaria. People singing it in factories, on the streets, and it's a very big moment. And our anthem is very epic in a way. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, and so at that time, I decided to. I told the director, you know what? I'm going to write the most simplistic, childlike track that I could imagine. And he was like, why? I mean, this is such an epic moment. Just write big. This is your place to write big. And I was like, yeah, but if I write big, then the anthem would not have the same impact, because you'll be listening to a lot of full orchestra music, and then you get the full orchestra anthem, and it doesn't have like an impact at all. So I decided to go like solo piano, cello, and solo violin throughout, and there's like an arpeggio thing It's super simple track. And those decisions, now to get back to your question, sorry for speaking so much about this, but to go back to your question, AI would never be able to make this decision, because somebody needs to make that decision for AI, this creative prompt, so to say. And this creative prompt is done by talking and discussing different ideas and just trying out different things. Nowadays, we get to a point where filmmakers will have like a temp track, and they will send over a temp track, and they will say to you, here's the budget, we need this done in 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever. And it's much easier to say, okay, that's it, I'll do something very similar to the temp track, and that's it. But talking and speaking to different creatives creates this sort of chain, emotional chain between you as filmmakers or game developers or whatever it is, or with theater and something. So you become involved and part of the process. And yeah, sometimes it might not work, because people are different. There are people that are very opposite any sort of different ideas to theirs. Sometimes you could try something else and say, you know what, that doesn't work. That was a stupid idea of me. Sorry, let's go to the first idea. But sometimes you could create something that's very unique and very interesting. So my suggestion to people who are just starting out, especially in this area of work, visual and musical storytelling, I like to call it, is to that being involved in a project and giving your creative input as a suggestion, obviously not forcing it onto somebody, but just speaking about this will definitely make you stand out more than just an AI tool that can create something similar to what if somebody has already heard or seen. So yeah, and film music is opposed to what my teachers at the academies like to say. It's an art that has so many nuances and varieties. Yeah, it's about writing music properly, but also about just pure communication and philosophical and psychological communication with either the director or the viewer. Yeah, so.
Yeah. I mean, it is ultimately, like you said, it's about, you have to develop taste and you have to be a decision maker. You have to be you have to see a vision and then execute on that vision. And to build that, you need to study music, write music. And then, like you said, it's AI still needs prompting. And even if it doesn't need prompting, it still needs to know what you want it to prompt. Because AI is actually really good at prompting as well, but you just need to, tell it what to do.
But also there's, I don't know people who won't be interested in doing a communication together with somebody regarding something that they're doing together. So let me rephrase that. So if I was a director of a film and I had some sort of an idea and some sort of a vision, I would love to go out, I would say, like to dinner with a composer so that we can discuss different ideas or go on the next day in the studio and try out different things together and say, okay, maybe this works. Yeah, this works. That's a great idea. And that creative, maybe for advertising or for like TV series that are very short on time and something. Yeah, maybe that won't be very preferable in terms of work, but everything else, people would love to have this creative connection with somebody else, and this is something that AI cannot give you. So people that are just starting out, I'm pretty sure that this is you shouldn't be afraid of AI. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I think that's important from what I've gathered about the younger upcoming generation is that there seems to be like because of all of the digitalization and being on the phones and not actually being out with people, that maybe those social skills have lessened somehow, broadly speaking, of course, not specifically, but so it might be that we are, or we have already entered a stage of in that generation of lessened social ability. So probably if you put more emphasis and work into that, you might be able to crush your competition, so to speak. But obviously I'm not very hands-on with how these younger people are, but that's what I've gathered.
But also there's something else, especially in film. Let's take into account that, let's speak about an artistic film, like feature film debut of a specific director. And that director has maybe he has gotten some sort of a grant or something like this, and they would create their own film based on their vision. And they would start at very early stages. So they would write the script, amend the script, change the dialogue here and there, get the character arcs. Then they would start doing the casting. Meanwhile, they would have work together with the people who are doing the dresses and the clothing and whatever, and the props. What else? Then they would get into actual rehearsal time with the actors, maybe changing the script a bit more here and there based on their suggestions. Then they would shoot the film with all the problems that are inside. Then they would start editing the film, and this is throughout 1, 2, 3 years, depends on the project. And after they edited the film, they would send it. This is the first time that the film is ready, and they would send it over to the sound team, which is on most of the cases, not necessarily so, but most of the cases, the people who recorded the film on set with the audio would be maybe persons that are in charge of the post-production as well. Not super necessarily, but again, these will be people that are connected to the project throughout the time. And then it comes to a composer, and this is the first person outside of the team that would be critically looking at the film. And this is so, by far, this is the director would be a person that he would know how to speak with, allegedly speak with actors. He would know enough about lenses and cameras to speak with the director of photography. He would know enough about script writing and character arcs to discuss this with the script writer. Maybe he's the writer himself. But on most of the cases, the composer is the first person that would see the film outside of that inner circle of the director. And also this is the first time where the director is on a like free falling position, and the composer is the one that is supposed to catch the director. Because on most cases, directors don't know anything about music. They speak in covers or in emotions, or but not in notes, not in chords. And it is our job to comfort them and make them feel safe and free. I think this is the most important thing. And this is not about, this is why I talked about talking, with the creatives, and not so much about actual notes. The notes are something that comes in afterwards. So this director needs to be comforted, and you have to speak with him and say, okay, this is something that we can do. We can use this. They want this. They want to try this. And yeah, at the end, it's a profession that allows you to not only to create art, but also help people in their creative way. Uh, which is real nice. And this is something, again, on that AI. I don't want to speak about AI anymore, but this is the last I'm going to say about it. This is something that AI won't be able to give that comfort as specific for a specific project. So yeah, I had a similar situation last year when I was doing a film about 4 women, and the director wanted the score to be jazz. And the film had many issues. They had issues with the, with the record, like not the record, with the shooting. And they had like the first DP canceled the project midterm, or was fired, I guess. I don't know. So they shot 6 days instead of 9 due to budgeting problems and issues. And so the director comes in and he brings the jazz to that film, and the film is not as good as everybody intended it. There's some issues where the acting is not very well done, and everybody is super stressed about this process. Everybody, and the writer is blaming the producer is blaming the director is blaming the first cameraman, and so forth and so forth. And then they came in with this decision where they would place jazz music on top of the film, and it just doesn't work. So very, very carefully, I went in there and said, okay, do you think that maybe this is the best idea? What about different? Should I try presenting you with different options? I can do some jazz, but let's take the opening sequence of the film and see what that film actually has as a soul. And this is maybe one of the first projects in my career so far where I had no clear idea of what to do. And normally when I do something, I know, yeah, maybe that's the right thing to do from the first time. But here, it wasn't like this. So we started jazz, didn't work. We did something that's like Thomas Newman-y, kind of like piano, kind of like Brooks was here from the Shawshank Redemption. And this is music, the type of music that works on everything, basically. But still kind of felt disconnected to the music. And at that time, tension gets even higher and higher. And then I got the director here in my studio and I said, okay, let's come in and let's listen to what you have in mind as reference. Here's what I dislike about it. How about this? But I prepared some stuff beforehand, and I did some used some samples. The Realitone ladies, I used those. So I actually used a lot of single shot vocals from 4 different singers. Kind of like do 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 do, very subtle stuff, and then again very piano, some clarinet here and there, something that's very discreet, and this is very out of my comfort zone. And the director loved it, and he said, this is something that works with the film. Why do you think that that works. And I said, I think because it's the female voices, because the female voices, you immediately kind of connect this to the characters, to the different, because there are 4 women, 4 main characters. But this was done through many sessions of just speaking about art, different types of art, listening to different types of music, watching different types of films, speaking about different types of films. And if I didn't do it, I would just do the jazz thing. Jazz thing would be easy. I have the reference, I do the same thing, and that's it. Here we go. But that's not what storytelling through music is actually about. So, yeah.
Briefly touching on your sources of inspiration, we've mentioned a bunch of composers already, sort of on the side, but what are some of the most notable composers, artists, bands who musically inspire you? And maybe also if you could throw in some video game composers in there as a notable mention.
Gareth Coker, I love his stuff from Ori and the Blind Forest, and I also really love what he did with the Halo franchise. Darksiders Genesis was a really nice soundtrack as well. I recently listened to more and more Olafur Arnalds. I love his stuff, and he did an album together with Talos, who passed away shortly before that. Dawning. And for me, that's the album of 2025. That's just a sublime piece of art. I love Howard Shore. I love Bear McCreary in terms of game music. Love God of War. Speaking of God of War, I love Eivor as an artist. She's are you familiar with Eivor?
How's it spelled?
EIVO with something with an accent R. She's a
I'm
singer.
not sure.
I think she was also part of the the Vikings.
Oh yeah. I mean, I listened to a fair bit of. Do you know Vardruna?
Vardruna, yes, of course. Yeah, that's kind of
amazing.
like the female counterpart of Vardruna.
Yeah. I'll probably know her. I'm pretty bad with names, but I have a big bank of sound in my head.
Yeah. I love the stuff that Piotr Muzio, he did Frostpunk 1 and 2.
Was it? Did I see that you conducted the sessions for
yeah,
those?
That's right.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I love the soundtracks. They are absolutely stunning. I've actually asked Piotr to be on the podcast, and he kind of said yes, but then he's been pretty busy after that, and I think he's a bit hesitant about the concept of a long podcast. He's like, I'm not sure if I can talk that long, but maybe you can convince him to to come on.
Yeah. He's one of the worst things that happened to me was we did a video game score together. It's for a game called Total Tank Generals. And the worst thing is that when you have Piotr write half of the music and then you have to write the other half, and it's just very, very hard to get this right. Yeah, and I love the stuff that obviously he's been our demo writer for so much of time, Jean-Gabriel Verneau, and but he did the soundtrack for Wolfson. Or Wolfson, maybe Wolfson. So I love what he's doing as well. Who else is on my listening. Yeah, I mentioned Ted Reedy and Diablo 5. I love Diablo 5, the soundtrack for it. Jason Hayes, which is in my opinion, core of Warcraft and World of Warcraft sound. In films, I like Alexandre Desplat. From John Williams, Hans Zimmer, Jerry Goldsmith, John Powell, Harry Gregson Williams, Rupert Gregson Williams, Thomas Newman. So these are, classics in a way. Who else? Maybe I'm missing somebody.
Well, I'm sure you are, because there's a lot to remember. Yeah, it's really tough to remember all of your inspirations and all that kind of stuff.
Howard Shore, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there something like, what beyond music inspires you?
That's hard to say, because at a certain point music becomes more and more, it's kind of like a narcotic, at least for me. So you're kind of always listening to and watching. Yesterday I was browsing Instagram and I stumbled across this, I guess Turkish, I don't know, maybe Turkish, darbuka player who just recorded like a single track in one take, and I was like, "Well, this is so inspiring. This is a fantastic artist." But yeah, apart from this obsession with music and music-related things, I find my family very inspiring. My kids, especially my daughter, when she was born, I did an album immediately after, kind of like she was born. I started writing music because I had some ideas. Reading, films, visual art. I love visual art. Probably you can get it from our artworks. I always loved working with people that can draw and paint stuff, and we were really fortunate to have people that are very interesting visually, I would say. Yeah. What about you? What does?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't remember who it was on the podcast who answered that. It's kind of, in a way, for them, it was difficult to separate inspiration from life itself. That like life is obviously the source of all inspiration, because that's what we know, and that's where everything comes from. So I kind of resonate with that, because I mean, life experiences themselves are obviously what teach you about human beings and life and connection, and all of that is kind of like laying, wire the infrastructure down that you're then later referencing when you are writing music, because I believe music models meaning, and that's why it speaks to us. So in a way, like a cop-out answer, but also a truthful answer, would be that it's just life as a totality. But yeah, like you said, I mean, we have 2 kids as well, so they are inspiring. It not in a like specific way that I would write music based on what they say and do, but like it's this sort of obviously they inspire me to try and be a better parent and father and provider and educator and all of these kind of things. But there's kind of like a deeper, you just want to do better for them. I guess, like as a example, but I don't know, there's something else about it that I can't quite put into words, but I guess you sort of, in a way, you want to be worthy of them in a way. And that does drive me. And also, I don't know if it's really like in a similar fashion. Like I go for walks in the woods here in my studio. I can just walk out and there's a forest there. And that is kind of, it's inspiring to me in a sort of a similar fashion to the kids. Kind of like it resets you, it gives you energy, it gives you perspective. It doesn't give me direct musical ideas, but it does reset you and give you a bit of calm and perspective on life. I think getting perspective is a big source of inspiration, of course, because
that's right.
You know, when the blindfolds come in and you start seeing things like this, it's impossible to be creative because you by definition need to break out from those walls that are closing in. But other than that, music for sure. Video games is a big one. Series and movies would be a bigger one, and they have been in the past, but I just don't have time to watch anything anymore.
Right. Yeah,
as I'm sure you know as well. How many kids do you have?
Two kids.
Two, yeah.
And they have a 7-year difference. So yeah. And now we're my daughter, she's in first grade, and the other one, my boy, he's a baby. So different types of problems. And
when was he born? He must have been just
March last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, late congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. My job was the easy one on that part.
Yeah.
Now the hard thing begins now. Yeah. But yeah, actually yesterday I had I'm not sure if you know, Bulgaria entered the Eurozone, so we changed our currency to euro from the 1st of January. Yeah, and it's kind of a chaotic thing. So
I can imagine.
On Friday, my daughter and I we played a really nice game called Cat Quest. It's a co-op game that you can play, and it's about cats, and you level up and you do some magic, and it's very child friendly. It's super nice, and she enjoys it a lot. And obviously, wrongly, we started with Cat Quest 3, and now we have to revert back to the previous ones. And on Friday, I was like, now you're after school. She had some sort of an exam in first grade. Super weird. Anyway, so I was like, do you want to play this game? And she was like, yeah. So I tried to buy it, but for some reason it was impossible. And I tried for some and used different cards, used Apple, Apple Pay, doesn't work. So I was like, maybe that's an issue with the PlayStation service. So I told her, okay, let's wait till Sunday and we'll try it then. So on Sunday, I tried same thing, and I was like, oh, that's super strange. So I Google it, and turns out that PlayStation disabled without any message, like warning message whatsoever, but they disabled payments in Bulgaria till the 16th of January because of the euro. That's okay. That's fine. I kind of understand it until, things settle down, financially. And then Sunday evening, I had for the first time in months, I had some time off, and the kids were asleep. My wife was reading a book, and I was like, oh, I'm going to play some Diablo. And she was like, yeah, sure. Okay. So I opened Diablo, and obviously I cannot play because it's not updated. And I was like, oh, okay. I have to update it. So I start waiting for like 40 minutes for the download. It's like 30 gigabyte download to happen. Then it, in that time, I'm just waiting like this. My wife falls asleep. I'm also, barely keeping myself alive and awake. And I was like, okay, it's 5 more minutes. Finally, it gets installed. I open it, connect to the servers, like the Blizzard servers, and then a message pops out, and you need to redeem your PlayStation Plus. you know, subscription in order to play multiplayer, and I was like, oh no, I get that was my first day in months that I
So-
get some time to play
So
something.
quality time with yourself,
Yeah, and I was
looking
like,
at a
yeah,
blank screen and
yeah,
waiting.
that's right. And even if I
Jeez.
wanted to pay for the subscription, I can't because of the PlayStation thing and the Bulgarian euro. So that was not
Nice.
inspiring, so to say.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
But it could be motivating, like maybe a bit of pent up anger and
Yeah, could be, yes.
frustration
Yes.
to take into your next project. Wrapping up the part like on your inspiration and maybe more specifically on your music, what's one thing that no one has ever asked you about your music that you wish they had?
Oh, good question. Not sure if I can respond to it. I've
Yeah, and it's kind of sort of coming from the perspective of, I think, because we all have an idea of what is, I guess, special and specific to us about our music. But the truth of music is, of course, that everybody perceives it differently based on who they are. So I was wondering if there is like a specific thing that you think makes your music. Like what is special about the Strezov sound or approach?
I don't know. Maybe I would respond to this question, which is a great question, by the way. I'm not sure if it's going to give you exactly the answer that you were looking for, but
I never look for any answers.
Yeah.
It's precisely where you want to take it is perfect.
So basically, maybe from a bit of a self, perspective, due to the fact that I was kind of an outlier in the Academy of Music, and I was not from music school. I kind of feel the need to for people to understand what I've done musically, that it's kind of on a next level. It's not simple, so to say. It's something that's more, there is some thought into it. And I often get some questions, especially by my wife, because we would be like watching, she's not a musician, so we would be watching like a movie that I did the music for, and there's like a dramatic moment and the music, and there for example people crying, and she would afterwards ask me, what did you think when you were writing this track or this music? And I don't know, in my mind she's kind of probably she's thinking, oh, this guy is so unhappy with our marriage and he's writing this super sad music, and and honestly, I have, most of the time I don't have any thoughts about this whatsoever. I'm just there are some things that inspired me in the picture, for example, and I just had some music, like a musical idea, nothing serious about it. However, there are some things that I made consciously, which are like, I love polyrhythm, for example, and in the soundtrack for Jagged Alliance, there's a lot of there's a track called Storming the Fortress, and at the end of it there's I wouldn't say polyrhythm, it's more like polymetric. So the track is in 4/4, it has a specific riff in 6/4, and at the end the riff gets repeated for the second time in 6/4, but all the high strings are playing the 6/4 riff, and everybody else is starts playing like a 12/8 kind of a groove. It's weird because then you have like two metrics. You have 6/4 and a triplet feel on top of that. And this is stuff that I wish somebody asked me and said, "Oh, Yeah, this is cool. What did you think about how did you come up with this idea? And so, um, or for example, I'll give you another example. There is a movie I did called Shibio, and it's a period film, very motive driven, and there are two main motives, which is the motive of Shibio, who's like a rebel, very masculine and manly and strong, yeah, like yourself. And then you get like the female, the love of of his wife Rada, and she's very beautiful and soft and gentle. And the theme for Rada is staying the same throughout the film, while his theme starts big and epic, lots of trombones and brass and male choir, and then he starts to, because he's a brigand, like a rebel, and and so he throws away this lifestyle and becomes more introspective and seeks forgiveness for what he's done, and goes to, essentially he knows that he's going to die if he pursues his love with her, because she's the daughter of a merchant, and he'll be captured if he goes to meet her. Essentially, that's the story of the film. So his character arc becomes from like a very strength-driven masculine person to somebody who's accepted their fate and decides to throw away his life for the love. And the music changes as well. And then the only time in the entire film where we see where we hear both themes together for a brief moment of time is at the end of the film, where both of them, they die at the end. So they go to a meeting, they rush to embrace themselves and to hug, and they get shot. She gets shot by an accident, because people want to kill him. So, and at the end we get their graves, and we, for the first time, we hear both themes as a counterpoint playing together. And nobody knows this. And yeah, as a response to your question, I would love if somebody said, "Oh, this is nice. How did you decide this?" and so forth.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure some composers, at least when they hear that, appreciate it. But that's kind of like, that's the hidden art in what composers do. Like, you do these things, and I wouldn't say it's fair to say that nobody notices, because once they're watching the movie and it's a good or even perfect experience, then it is a success, even though they don't know all the mechanics of how the music works. But if it's done correctly, it will still, because what you described is basically like it's a meta theme. And they obviously, even the simplest, most non-musical person is gonna they listen to the man's theme that's playing whenever he's doing stuff, and then also the woman, and it's a very simple concept. They sort of come together, but it's not easy to do, even though the concept is simple. And if it is successful, then they will have a good movie experience. They won't appreciate maybe all the depth and the hard work that you put into it, but still you are successful in the output.
Yeah. So, hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Cool. Before, I see we're kind of closing in on the 3-hour mark, I want to be respectful of your time. I mean, I can keep going, but I'm sure you have many things to get to. I just wanted to touch on your sort of, I guess, a professional work life and personal life balance, because now I know you have 2 kids and you're doing your composition work, you have Strezov sampling, then maybe, I don't know if you do the orchestration and conducting stuff as well.
Sometimes, yeah.
So how do you like, how do you balance all of this? Because, and this is also coming from a very personal perspective, because this is something I'm struggling with, and I don't have, I mean, I have a lot of plates that I'm trying to spin, but seems like you have a lot more, and you also have a lot more responsibility towards other people as well. So do you have any sort of insight into how you make that balance work, and how you make your life as a father work as well with your creative life as well?
Yeah, well, I'm first of all, I'm blessed to have found a woman that would endure me in in my creative work, because essentially I could go on about the two themes, and the theme of the man and theme of the girl, and all going all philosophical, but she's the one that endures with the kids, and she's also working as well. So I would say this is something that I've been especially in the last couple of years, I've been trying to work more and more onto it, because I'm a workaholic. I can sit here in the studio and I can sit here for hours to come. And when it gets Saturday or Sunday, this is something that my wife cannot understand. She's a pharmacist. Because when it gets Saturday, she wants to go somewhere out, like in the, I don't know, in the forest or outside of the city. And I don't feel the need to do this. I I could I could be here and write music, and that would be the doom of me. So what I've been trying in the past 7 years, since my daughter was born, is to focus more on family, and especially not work on weekends. This is I know this is super silly to say. Most of the people that I and my friends that I tell this to, they cannot understand it. They say, "You work on weekends? Why do you?" And for me, that's not work. It's like a way of living, in a way.
It's like asking, why do you want to do the thing that you actually want to do?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So and I've tried to decrease the amount of things I'm doing by a lot. And in the past couple of years, I've conducted less, and I've done less orchestration, and being less involved with recordings. Because also that's something that's very demanding on my psyche, so to say. It's just super stressful. That's a super stressful work. Because, for example, for a week you have 5 days that, or even more, because musicians, they record on weekends as well. So let's say that you have like 5 days of recording with 5 different clients. So that these are 5 different projects with 5 different aesthetics, 5 different composition styles, five different ways of communication, and everything happens within the time span of a single week. And most of the time you're also working with 5 different ensemble types. So essentially you have the same players but with subtle differences. And it's not your music, it's somebody else's music, and you're trying to get into their shoes. And yeah, so long story short, in my work-life balance, I try to get out of that as much as possible, without compromising my colleagues and the work ethic that we have here, and trying to be at home as much as possible for me. And I'm trying to also be more optimized in my workflow because of that. Because I know that now I have a limited amount of time that I get to work. So I became essentially more organized, which I wasn't before that organized.
Do you have any tips on that? Like, what is the biggest thing that helped you get more efficient?
Google Calendar. Google Calendar, and also I'm very old school-ish. My friends gave me this. Hang on. Here at the studio. That's a remarkable tablet where you can write on. Do you know this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm taking a lot of notes on, and I'm taking notes on, recordings and stuff. But most of the time, let me give you an example. Okay, so here we go. This is some sort of a movie. I guess it's inverted, but anyway, it doesn't matter. The music doesn't matter. So that's a movie, and I have this theme for this, and then I wrote theme for this and this and this. Here is again something that I've created theme for someone. Here's the female theme that I mentioned. Oh, there we go. And when I get this, especially in film work or in video game, especially if it's motif related, you now know the fundaments of your music, and then it's just about the craft, because you know the creative side of things. You have the melody, you have the harmony. You can write down different scenarios. Like if it's mysterious, the harmony should be the theme could be the same, but the harmony could be a bit different. And when you prepare this, it's all about the getting into the time frame that you need to do. And then I try to say, okay, I have to compose 60 minutes of music for this film, and I have, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then it's all about how many minutes of music I need to write per day. So it sounds complicated, but actually isn't that much. For the sampling stuff, we use Slack, so we try to keep everything very organized. We're very creative and artistic persons as well, so we could be better in that regard. So we try to optimize it even more. Especially for projects where we get a lot of people on board. So yeah, before that it was all fun and games, but the more I decided to value my time and also spend some personal time for myself, like going to the gym every morning when I leave my daughter at school, then I spend an hour just doing like a training before going to work. Yeah.
Well, I should have known this before. We could have talked about gym stuff. maybe we can do a round 2 next time, because we can't get to everything that I wanted to talk about. But this is a whole new chapter that I'm
sure.
Learning
for
about.
me, it's first of all, it's nice to get away of problems and issues that you might get into your workday or week. In a way, as you said, it gives you perspective, even though you're forced into a tiny space with lots of metal stuff and machines and whatever, but still you're kind of focused in very samurai way of doing some self-learning. And I use the time to listen to music as well. This is something that I stopped doing at a certain point in my life, listening to music, and suddenly I stopped and looked back and said, oh, why did I stop listening to music? I have no idea why I stopped listening to music. So I'm trying to give myself more time about this and family, obviously.
Yeah, I'm still figuring out the time for yourself part. I guess for me, it is the gym as well. And to be honest, to me, it's kind of like working on music.
Yeah.
That's like, it is time that you're spending by yourself. And obviously, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like similar to you. It sounds like I'm I'm good with a few things as long as they're my things. You know,
Yeah.
I don't really yearn for a lot of variety, because the things that I do, I really love. Like, I love working out. I love writing music. I love talking with people like yourself. I love all these things that I'm doing, but it's like, I don't really want anything from beyond those things.
Yeah.
And frankly, don't have time for. But I relate to the music listening thing. That's something that I'm trying to get better at, because I'm not inputting as much stuff as I should, which means I'm a worse composer as a result of that. But yeah, I'm working on it. I'm actually really disappointed with Apple Music's discovery thing. It's kind of like recommending the same stuff to me over and over again, and it's not really working. So I need a different approach for that.
A few times I wrote on Facebook, just recommend me some, usually at the end of the year, recommend me some music, and a lot of time people are sending some real nice and interesting weird suggestions. So yeah, you could do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good. Cool. I mean, do you need to be off somewhere else? There's
in 15 minutes or so. So
okay, cool. Yeah, then we need to go into the final questions. Sort of briefly touching on, like, what's next in store for you. This can be like conceptual, or it can be general. It doesn't need to be like specifically telling a project, but
well,
what's coming?
Yeah, next in store, it's not very exciting maybe for most of the people, but I got a place that I mentioned before that is going to become my creative crib, so to say, and I'm very excited about it. And we're at the final stages of renovation, and afterwards I need to start doing all that cabling things.
Lovely.
And and finally, hopefully, get to write some music in there. And I'm actually very looking forward to it, because here in my space, it's a really nice space. Not the room itself, but the building, because the building is filled with this music energy of different people and collaboration, and you have a lot of creatives and a lot of super talented folk. And every time you feel bad about something, you can just go to the kitchen for a cup of coffee, and then you meet your peers and you discuss something about music, and you can feel better about the stuff that made you feel desperate before that. However, it kind of lacks intimacy. The thing where you would get like a sexy lightning with, and just close your eyes and do some stuff on the piano, because every time you zone out to the creative thing, there'll be someone you could be it could be either, I don't know, like a trombone player playing somewhere at the distance, or somebody would open up different samples of drum samples and just start listening them, kicks and snares. So that's what I hope will be kind of around the end of 2026. About for the sampling stuff, we have a couple of products at the pipeline that are in ways exciting, and one of them is pretty big. I don't want to say yet what it is before we finish the recordings, but we'll have to do some recordings for it, especially. And the rest is like a new series in the performance series, and a nice new vocal library. And we have a celeste library coming up next. So again, in a ways, it's going to be a busy year, and I'm still waiting for my fantasy film or fantasy video game to score.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask, what is a project you'd like to do but haven't done yet? So I guess you answered that.
Yeah. Well, I did last year. I did a video game called Frosthaven. It's based on the board game, and
oh, nice.
Yeah, hopefully the soundtrack will be out. They promised the end of January. We'll see. Which was in a way fantasy-ish. So yeah, it's pretty fantasy.
Yeah.
But again, it was something that I had to step in at the kind of last possible situation, the minute, yeah. And that was because sometimes, especially with games, because you have a lot of time normally, you would love to spend a bit more time to think about what you're actually doing and maybe come up with some interesting, nice concept. In that regard, I didn't have the time for it. So maybe a fantasy game with more time and more music.
Nice. Good. Yeah. I always ask guests, what is your definition of an artist? But I guess we already answered that when you were talking about your uncle.
My uncle, yeah.
Yeah, we can skip that. Yeah. I also ask if you could send a message onto everyone's smartphone screen, lock screen, and it goes out to everybody on the planet simultaneously, and they have to look at it before they can obviously unlock their phone. What would you send onto that lock screen?
Maybe it's kind of connected to what we said about not listening to music, forgetting your music, being focused on, on like the work-life balance, focus on work and thinking about just that. So I would say, do not forget your child dreams, because very often we tend to get focused so much into work that we forget what we really desired to do when we were young. And us, I think we are very blessed to have been able to do this as a living. To some extent. Obviously, I haven't composed the fantasy, the next Baldur's Gate and Dungeons and Dragons game, but still,
that's coming.
Yeah, but still. However, there are a lot of people who didn't do that and became something, and a lot of my friends, and it really pains me to see them kind of consume themselves because of something that they dislike doing, because they left their passion for photography, for example, for a steady bank job or whatever. So maybe that would be my answer, because this is what truly makes people happy.
Yeah. Who is someone you would like to see as a guest on this podcast?
Ooh. Thomas Bergeson.
I would love to do that.
Yeah, Thomas
I know you conducted some of the choir stuff for Two Steps from Hell back in the day.
And also some of the orchestral things. The A Christmas Carol, the latest thing, not the latest, but the thing that he posted for Christmas 2024, I think, was something that we did here in Tali. I conducted it and orchestrated it. He's also a definition of a true artist, in my opinion. John Powell would be probably next. Jasper, I think, is also a person that would be able to tell you a lot of interesting stories.
Sounds very ominous and mysterious.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Hans Zimmer, and Harry Gregson Williams, because I think they have also a lot of stories to tell about a lot of the stuff that we've listened to and that made us our, in a way, our perceivance of film music nowadays. What goes behind "Now We Are Free" as a song, or how do you record "Kingdom of Heaven"? For me, that's one of the most amazing scores. Yeah. James Horner. Cool. If you could bring James Horner back,
bring him back. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, that's a list to work on for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. I would also love to have all of them on if possible. What is a creativity related question that's been on your mind lately and that you've been sort of pondering and thinking about and you're working to get an answer to? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, we kind of spoke about this today, and it's about how do I make myself more unique than the thing that I promised I wouldn't speak about, the AI. So this was something that I've been thinking about more and more, because it is scary in ways, but I've been asking myself, how do I make myself useful, and what makes me differentiates me, what makes me more unique than this tool. So yeah, I think this is
cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for taking the time. This was a pleasure.
Markus, I had a blast. It was my pleasure. It was my pleasure. Is it cold right now? And
it's not too bad. I think it's let me check, -8 degrees.
It's not too okay.
It's not too bad. I think we were around -20 a couple of days ago.
Oh,
it was more than -20, maybe 22, 23.
Okay,
that was getting in the ballpark. How is the winter in Bulgaria?
Well, it is -8 here, and it's for us it's a bit too much.
It's like doomsday.
Yeah, I wouldn't say doomsday because it's been colder, but right now it's lots of ice everywhere, and you know, but yeah, I prefer summer.
Yeah, it definitely has its upsides. Yeah, I mean the roads here are like it's like a drifting track, racetrack. So it's a lot of fun. Can be a bit dangerous, but luckily Finns are legendary drivers. So
yes, you do have 2 sets of tires, right? The summer and winter ones.
Yeah, it's legally you have to have that. Yeah.
And winter ones, from which months do you have to keep them on?
I think it's somewhere in November when there's the date when you have to put them on, and then let me think. Maybe I don't know where it's legally where you're bound. Maybe March, April, something like that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Kind of, but it's the same. Here.
Yeah, I think there are some clauses about like if the weather demands it. So I don't think it's like completely set in stone, because we can have winter in April still.
Yeah.
So it can be a bit dangerous to drive with summer tires.
We had a situation last year, where my friend Alex, who's, as I mentioned, is one of the project supervisors at Strezov Sampling. We himself, I and 2 other friends, we did some arrangements for a local pop singer for a concert with band and orchestra. And the orchestra was in a different city, kind of in the mountains. So we had to be present at the like a rehearsal in September, end of September actually. So we went there, and then as we were driving, there was like this huge storm, like blizzard basically, and he had still his like summer tires on, and it was like the longest drive, because normally it's like an hour and a half to get to that city or something, and we drove for like 3 hours maybe, just super slow on the highway. There's snow everywhere. There's nothing, like no machinery to clean up the snow, and we are also with summer tires, so that was yeah, super stressful as well.
Yeah, an experience for sure.
Yeah.
Cool, awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I'll let you get back to your work. Again, this was a lot of fun. And if you're interested, maybe in the future, once enough time has passed, we could do a round 2, because
Absolutely,
I still have a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about and learn and share.
Absolutely, and
Hopefully.
also talk about gym stuff as well.
Yes, I'm gonna add that in there with all the stuff.
All right.
Cool.
Well, it's been a
Awesome.
pleasure, really. Thank you for thinking of me, and appreciate it.
Absolutely.